All right.
All right,
Welcome
everyone.
to the Jungle Auburn podcast. Oh man, we're a mess. The team was a mess. That was a tough game. Auburn just finished a brutal 67-65 loss to Vanderbilt on the road. This is Ben here hosting tonight alongside Ryan Norman. Ryan, how you doing?
Well, I was doing good a few minutes ago, but man, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, this was a brutal loss. We did some things right. We did some things wrong. Where do you want to start with the breakdown here?
It's hard to break down literally minutes after the whistle blows.
It
I mean,
really
I
is.
guess we could. I guess we could talk about just the guard play. Let's start with that
Yeah, let's talk about
because
our guard play because you and I were part of the preseason podcast where we talked about what do we think the ceiling for this team is. We were all pretty aware that they didn't have as high a ceiling as teams we've had in the past, and I think the common consensus was this team was going to go as far as Wendell Green Jr. was going to take us. We went after some guards in the offseason. We didn't hit any in the transfer portal. And where did Wendell Green Jr. take us tonight?
man, this team goes when Wendell goes. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to put a lot on Wendell tonight because I mean, well, he's been so good for us these past however 5 6 games. I mean, we would have been out of a lot of these games if he didn't play well. I mean, but tonight it was brutal. I mean, 2 of 14 from the field, 0 of 3 from the three, 1 or 2 free throws. I mean, it's tough, and I got to say that's part of the reason why we didn't perform as well. Their guards picked us up and pressured us so fast and so quickly that we couldn't get anything on the perimeter. I mean, not just from him, but from any guards. Zepp was a ghost. Flanagan had 5 points. He was basically useless out there as well. Wendell just was a ghost. The only guard that produced and did something was our guy Leor. That was it. I mean, so it was KD as well. I forgot about KD. Besides that 3 pointer with less than 20, he was our guards were gone. And Vanderbilt had a great game plan to knock us out of that. They knew what our weakness was. They picked us up and pressured us immediately after half court, kind of like Texas A&M did at home against us. And they were non-factor.
Yeah, and again, we don't want to put too much on the refs because the refs are something you're never going to be able to control in any game you do whatsoever. But I can't look away from this free throw disparity. We shot
It's
10
crazy.
free throws for the game. They shot 26. Liam Robbins, who we all knew coming in was going to be their guy, he scores a ton of points for them. He finished with 24 points, but he got 17 of them at the charity stripe. The man is 7 feet tall and he shot 20 free throws tonight.
I I could not believe my eyes. I literally there were so many plays. There was one in particular. Chris Moore went up and finished a layup. He got shoved in the back, no call. But Robbins down low went up for an easy layup, threw it off the backboard, literally like over his head, threw it off the backboard, and they blew the whistle. I mean, it was crazy. I just man, it was there with 4 minutes left. Vanderbilt had 2 fouls.
Yeah.
Four. I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's pretty inexplicable. And one of the things that really hurt tonight were missed free throws in critical moments. We on this podcast try to not have you fall too much in love with the box score. 5 of 10 free throw shooting is pretty abysmal. But what was worse was the opportunities that we had them in the moments when we had them. We really needed them. Wendell took his first two free throws with, I believe, about 2 minutes left. That would have put us up two, and he only hit one out of two, which that's normally okay for a guy if that gets to the line 1 out of 2. That's fine. You live with that in college basketball. But in a crucial moment, now you're talking about any basket puts you back down, and that just changes the whole complexion of the ball game. But let's get away from discussing some of the bigger picture. Let's talk about some of these performances tonight because, in a lot of ways, offensively, Janai Broom rose to the challenge. He was playing against a bigger guy. He was playing against a bigger front court than he had in previous games, and he finished with 20 points tonight. And they weren't easy points. He only shot 4 free throws.
Yeah, there were some questions about if Janai was going to actually play tonight, and he was kind of favoring that ankle a little bit at the beginning of the game. And I mean, he rose to the challenge. And honestly, if we are to advance into a postseason play, like he's going to have to carry us. I mean, it all leans on him and Wendell. If Wendell can play well and he can play well, then I think we're gonna put up fights and we're not gonna lose these type of games. But when one of them doesn't perform like Wendell, it hurts us. And the fact that Janai went out there and he did his job, this kind of honestly, Ben, this game kind of reminded me of Georgia a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, down low, we were dominant. Jalen, Janai, but our guards were non-existent. I mean, it's like when can we throw these things together and close out an even tight game too? It's
I'll tell
just
you when we can throw these things together, and it's when we really win the turnover battle. That was another huge struggle for us tonight, particularly early on.
yeah.
I believe we were about 5 minutes into the game, and Vanderbilt had forced 3 turnovers, and we had 0. We finished losing the turnover battle 10-9, which is not terrible. But we've seen for this Auburn team that the recipe for us is to turn teams over, to outshoot them, and to be able to get those high quality shots from our guard. The stunning stat tonight for Wendell is not 2 for 14. We've seen him had some bad shooting nights before, but Wendell had 1 assist tonight. And that is not his game. His game is being the straw that stirs our drink and being able to distribute the ball well. And, Ryan had to remind me 3/4 of the way through this game that Janai was in fact injured. Because if you were to watch this game, some of his offensive moves, that full skill set, the turnaround jumpers, the left-handed hook shots, the spin moves, they were all there. Defensively, he did struggle a little bit, but the key to know about Janai's health tonight was that final play with 10 seconds left on the clock. Dylan Cardwell was on the floor. And the reason that Dylan Cardwell was on the floor was they needed to play the full 94 feet defense. And Bruce didn't trust Janai because he was hurt, I'm sure. I think that had to be part of it. There wasn't any foul trouble there, but Janai was not on the floor for the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we weren't ever in that position, anyways.
No kidding.
But I mean, it's that's a game you have to have, and it's a gut punch because we don't have those quad one wins that we need to go up some of these resumes if we are to struggle at the end of the season. Which I mean, we had to have this game tonight, in my opinion. I mean, every game from this point forward is a must win, and you know. I think Janai went out there and valiantly he played so well. He went up against a good 7-footer on defense, and they have another guy in there they can throw in too to match up against him. But you brought up the point about Wendell only having 1 assist. Most of Janai and Jalen's points were off those flex cut actions. Either on the baseline or a 2 guard or even the 4 or Janai getting it to those guys. So like what would happen would be someone would get the ball to Janai on the top of the key. Jalen would flex cut to the other wing. They get it to him, and he would just go 1-on-1. And that's how he was getting all of his points in the first half. None of them came from a Wendell drive or a driving kick or driving dish. And so, Wendell could not get past their point guard at all tonight. I mean, that's concerning if we ever have a matchup with them again in the SEC tournament or another team if we were to make it in the NCAA tournament, match up with him like that. It's a killer for us, honestly.
Yeah, and it's brutal because ordinarily when we talk about Wendell struggling to drive, it's against bigger guards. But Ezra Manjon is 6 feet, 170 pounds. That's like the perfect matchup for Wendell. And he looked like the more athletic guard on the floor tonight. It was very difficult for Wendell to get around him. It was very difficult for us to move through screens. Our screen game was basically non-existent. And a lot of our high ball screens, we were working through Janai. So I wonder how much of that soft screen action had to do with his injury and his inability to, I don't know, set his feet and drive contact in a way that we were hoping for. But it's a rough night. We got some value out of Lior Berman tonight. But as we get into the player breakdown here, let's talk about some of the options that we've thrown out on this show about different ways for this team to kind of get to the next level. We've talked a little bit about possibly some of us wanting to start Lior at the 2, change some of the rotations around. I think we saw tonight that this team is kind of who they are. There's not a lot of options here to get you a little bit further offensively than what we have, because late in the game, up a few points, we got Lior some quality looks, some clean looks from his spot in the wing, and he was not able to hit those shots. So it's clear that we're not hiding him on the bench somewhere. He, I don't want to say is as inconsistent as KD, but he's not leaps and bounds better in a way that you trust him more with the ball. I mean, look at what KD Johnson did tonight at the end of that game. Late in the shot clock, play was blown up. They got the ball in his hands, still unafraid to shoot it, unafraid to make it. He had a quiet night overall, in part because he missed 3 of his 4 free throws. But, I don't know where on this roster, except for maybe these freshmen that aren't playing, you can look to say there's points that we're leaving on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think this coaching staff has done an incredible job in SEC play, especially since the uh, A&M game at home, trying to get us shots and open shots and get this team offensively going some way or another. I mean, up until this point, this team has kind of found their identity and that they are where they are. And if a guy gets hot, you got to ride him. I mean, Missouri, KD got hot, you got to ride him. Wendell has been hot in some of these games. You got to ride him. Janai had been kind of a ghost until this game, for being honest. It's they just are where they are, like you mentioned, and we just got to kind of figure out what we have to do with the guys that we have, and that's difficult because in a type of game where it's a high intensity, um, front pressuring type game with the crowd into it. I kind of had a feeling from the very beginning that our guards were not going to be a factor in this game, especially with the way they were pressing Wendell. So I think we honestly did a very good job of getting the guys that we needed to score. But like you said, when Lior had the opportunity to hit those shots, Lior is a good first half player. Like when we need those buckets in the second half, I don't know if I've seen him this year be there for us in the second half if we need it. Like when he gives us those few minute spells in the first half, he's pretty efficient. Like he'll hit some shots, he'll hit some pump fake dribble in the middle of the key shots or on the wing shots. But other than that, like that is what he is. And when it comes down to crunch time, that's not who we need on the court, honestly. And I think he had his opportunity tonight, and he kind of, he missed both those shots like you mentioned, and that was big. We
Yeah.
needed those.
Yeah,
Um,
he had his moment tonight to become a next level type player. And I think he is just a good part of the rotation. And I think that's all you can expect from him. I don't think you can expect him to be one of these guys that's going to rise up late and hit a key shot. Let's talk about rebounding. We knew it was going to be a struggle tonight with Vanderbilt's big front court, but we got absolutely waxed tonight in rebounds, 41-34. We were out rebounded on the defensive end by 4, on the offensive end by 3. And we had a surprising game. Wendell finished with 8 rebounds, but almost all of those were defensive. And I think those had a lot to do with how much Vanderbilt cooled off from 3 in the second half. But we weren't great on the offensive glass, getting second chance points. And somehow we were even worse about being able to close out good defensive possessions where we got Vanderbilt to take the shots that we wanted. And I don't know. I felt like we were out of position a lot offensively tonight, or defensively, I should say. There were a lot of moments where shots went up and we had a smaller guy on Liam Robbins inside. How do you think that happened?
yeah, I mean, credit Jerry Stackhouse. Like I got to give him credit tonight. He had a very good game plan. They ran a lot of good stuff. They ran a lot in the second half. They had their power forward and their center up top. They would run their point guard, shooting guard off those 2 screens, and then Robbins would flash cut in the middle of the lane. And we saw a ton. I think under 4, he had a dunk and then a foul where Jalen should have picked him up and he did not. And Janai was kind of in the middle of nowhere in no man's land. They ran a lot of good stuff, and they gave us a lot of uh, uh, cut action and flex action that we could not pick up on, and it caused a lot of mismatches. I have to go back and look at some of the highlights and see how that happened, but I think a lot of guys were just confused. A lot of guys were not communicating, and by the time the game was at the end, it was kind of too late. I mean, we had already had foul trouble. We had already fouled Robbins a ton, and it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones was towards the end, like Wendell was boxing out Robbins, and
Yeah,
that was the play where
twice.
they had to review the shot clock. I mean, like that is that's wild. It's crazy.
It's not
Credit stack.
often, yeah, it's not often that we felt like this team has been outcoached, but I do think there's an argument tonight that I don't know if it was the scout, or it was Jerry Stackhouse throwing some things at us that we weren't prepared for, what it was, but it was clear that Vanderbilt knew how to get the matchups they wanted, and it was even more clear that we couldn't get the matchups that we wanted. Their defense was so tight, we were not able to rub anybody off or get the kind of switches that we wanted. So we were oftentimes 15 seconds and below in the shot clock trying to figure out what we were going to do on offense. And late in the shot clock, it still seemed like Vanderbilt was working towards what they were trying to get, which is the ball in close to the basket to Robbins to try to draw some kind of foul.
Yeah, yeah, it was tough. I mean, I feel like if from my perspective, if it was called a little bit closer in terms of a foul disparity, and I think the game would have been in our advantage a little better. But I mean, the fact that Robbins was just throwing the ball of the back off the backboard, and you know, 20 free throws is crazy. I cannot get over that stat that I'm looking at every single time. The fact that we had 10 and they had 27 and 20 of them came from him.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to
Ryan,
me.
I'm pretty sure you could score 20 points in the SEC if they gave you 20 free throw attempts.
It's just
You could probably drop 24, but let's give some credit to Vanderbilt as we kind of come towards the end of our analysis here. Uh, they did play some tough defense, and they really were aggressive into our point guards. We
yeah.
had 9 turnovers tonight. 5 of them came from Wendell Green Jr., Zep Jasper, and Trey Donaldson. Those are the guys that are supposed to be kind of our experienced ball handlers. I know the ball isn't going through Zep's hands quite as much this season, but it feels like those are the guys that you would trust to be responsible with the ball, and them turning the ball over really hurts tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I mean, if you go back to the beginning of SEC play against Georgia, and even A&M, when we play these teams with very athletic guards, it's a mismatch for us, at the very beginning of the game, and you can kind of tell how that's going to go just by how they're pressing us and how they're playing up on our guards so quickly that we know that okay, so this is going to be one of those games where our guards are not going to get anything offensively. And what's funny is it's always against those teams that are lower tier, mid tier of the SEC. Like you don't see that from the games that we played against the top tier teams in the SEC, like Alabama, Tennessee, A&M the second time. Like they did not play that way against us, and so therefore, I feel like we match up better against those type of teams. If we do like a Georgia at their place or a Vandy here, where they're playing up against our guys so quickly and so fast that like we can't get anything out of our guards from a full court or even a half court where they're picking us up right there at the half court. Um, it's tough because when you don't have that, it really takes out all of our offense, really. And we have to run through Jalen or Janai. And, if they can't get anything towards the end of the shot clock, they're passing it out. It's tough. We don't get good shots, good looks. And that's a killer for us on offense.
Yeah, it was a hard game on the road. The margin for this team, as we've said all year, is razor thin between a win and a loss. And this was just one of those nights where we had enough go the wrong way that we wind up in a situation where we're on kind of the bad end of a lot of small things. It's really the death by 1,000 cuts tonight. The free throws coming at the wrong time, our misses coming at the wrong time. You know, if there's one thing that I could wish for a team this late in the season, it's just better shot selection early in the shot clock. And I know Bruce loves to let his guys play, but the idea that Janai hits a couple of 3-pointers in warmups, so you want him to get some 3-point heat checks, that's crazy to me. Particularly when you look at just how well that he and Jalen did inside tonight. You got them in the paint, they were unstoppable. Nobody wanted to foul them. Nobody wanted to guard them that close. They got every kind of look they needed to. And, one of the moments we really lost this game tonight was on a Jalen Williams 3-pointer. He was wide open at the top of the key, one-on-one, could have put his head down and driven the ball, and he settled for an open three. And we're just not that team this year.
Yeah, it's tough because if he would have made that shot, we would have probably been talking differently. Yeah, it's
Yeah, but if you ask me to bet money on it, I'm gonna bet money that that shot's probably not gonna go down.
yeah, but
Jalen Williams is our best 3 point shooter, in terms of like volume and also percentage hit. Um, but he's 6'8", 230 pounds, man. Get ahead of steam going and go get the points the hard way. Overall, not a bad shooting night for us. About 44% from the field, around 31, 32% from three. That's about what you can expect from this team. Um, Another disheartening thing, we outshot Vanderbilt tonight, 62-56. We put up six more shots than they did, and we still lost by two. And the answer to that just comes from the foul line.
yeah, it's man, it's one of those things where Jalen, I think, kind of disappeared a little bit in the second half. And that also hurt us because he was dominant in the first. And, I feel like when he just kind of disappears from games sometimes too, and the fact that he didn't really in the second half assert himself like he did in the first half hurt us. Um, it's that's tough. And yeah, you're right. The shot selection early in the shot clock sometimes is head scratching, and majority of the time it's a miss instead of a make. But it is what it is at this time of the year. Like we just have to live with it. And against Missouri, that was we're hitting those shots. It's just one of those things that it's a game by game sample size, and most of the time at home we're probably going to hit that. But on the road in this type of environment and where we're getting our looks inside, that is where I feel like we should go to. Kind of looking ahead here.
Yeah, let's talk about the road ahead.
It's tough because honestly, honestly, Wednesday's obviously a must win. I mean, Ole Miss only 2 wins in the conference. Um, I take again Bruce after a loss is I feel I'm going to feel bad for Ole Miss because I have a feeling we're going to come out with heads on fire, needing that win. And then you got to look at the last three, which we all know it's coming at Kentucky, at Alabama, versus Tennessee. You got to have one of those. Have to have one of those. If you can have two with Tennessee at home and then stealing one on the road, then we're locked up. We're locked up in the postseason.
Yeah,
But I think
let's take a look at the SEC standings here because that's going to be a big part of determining whether or not this team gets to go dancing. Obviously, the Ole Miss game is a must-win, but you're right. The last three teams are against who are currently the top four teams in the SEC. Alabama's number one, Tennessee and Kentucky. After Kentucky goes into Knoxville and sweeps Tennessee for the year, they are now tied for fourth place at 9-5, and we are now in a fifth place tie with the team we played tonight, Vanderbilt, at 8-6. Arkansas and Florida and still Missouri are all right behind us by one game at 7-7. So we're in just the worst possible situation we did not want to be in, which is that we need to win two out of these last four games to even consider possibly a 2-round bye in the SEC tournament, but more importantly, to go dancing in the NCAA tournament. Because
yeah.
right now we need a win in the SEC tournament, I think, to get in.
Well, I mean, if we get two, it's so the good part about this year is that I think this college basketball as a whole is down. I mean, honestly, like if you take a look at today's bubble, like even if we the fact that we lost this game, I still don't think we're on the bubble. I still think we're a 10 seed. And look, I mean, the fact that you just got to get in is key. And there are also teams that are losing today too. But if you take a look at these next four games, right? Ole Miss at home, got to have it. I take Bruce off a loss. If you look at every single time we lost this year, besides maybe that 3 game stretch, we have come out and played extremely well. So I would expect us to come out Wednesday night and play very well. Out of the next three, Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee, at Kentucky, I feel like is a good matchup for us. And I know that sounds crazy because it's at Kentucky, but if you look at the way they played this year and their style of play versus our style of play, I actually like us in that game better than I do at Alabama or Tennessee at home. So if we were to go in there to Lexington and win that, I think that really solidifies us into a hard 7 seed, maybe higher, but around that 7, 8 seed is probably where we land. But look, it's scary because this bubble talk, and you look at our resume, it's not the best when you look at it with other teams, you know?
No. And the tricky part after tonight is going to be watching where we are in the analytics, because prior to this, we'd lost to a lot of good teams, and some of those good teams had made us not look like a good basketball team. This is the first time I think that a bad team has made us not look like a good basketball team. So it's going to be tough reading into the analytics and kind of seeing where the net and KenPom has us placed. But we do still have some crucial opportunities, because you're right. One of these wins, either in Lexington, uh, Alabama and Coleman, or beating Tennessee at home, those are resume boosters. And we pick one of those up, we get a win. Ole Miss, they're really reeling right now. They started off looking like maybe they could steal some games, but they're currently next to last in the SEC, only behind LSU, who, as we all know, has completely kind of fallen apart as a program. But nothing's a guarantee with this team. All it takes is a cold shooting night early and us getting down, because we've seen just how hard it is for this team to come back down. And one of the brutal aspects of this game was it just seemed like we could never stretch a lead. I think our largest lead of the night was 4 points. And that's not a recipe for success for this team. We need to arrive based on our MAT system metrics, the minutes against time trailing. We need to arrive at that 3 minute mark, up around 6, to feel like we've really got a shot, because our defense is good enough. We saw it down the stretch that we were able to force them into taking tough shots and giving ourselves a chance. But we're a better team protecting a lead than we are trying to go after one.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's if we look at some of the rankings here real quick, I got KenPom pulled up and the net. So right now, KenPom after the game, we're 21, which is, I mean, obviously it's kind of where you want to be. We're still ahead of Texas A&M, which is crazy to me. Texas A&M gets no love, and they're second in the SEC.
I mean, Texas A&M had some bad losses early in the year.
They had some very bad losses,
Losses to
and that
Colorado, Murray State. They had a tough time early going. So again, you see how important it is early basketball in establishing your identity. But we're going to see how well it does for us down the stretch.
yeah, I mean, it's the fact that we don't have. I think the committee is going to take a look at losses, right? What are your bad losses? And when I look at it, we don't really have bad losses besides tonight and Georgia. I mean, Georgia is a really bad loss. That I think that's going to sting. But tonight in Georgia is a quad 2 loss. We don't have any quad 3 or quad 4 losses. But the thing that's going to hurt us is the quad 2 or quad 1 wins, which is only 2.
Yeah.
So you got to have one of those big 3 coming up: Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee. You got to have one of those just to continue to build that quad 1 resume, which is obviously what people want to see, what they want to look at. But and when you look at some of the net rankings too, it's also how close we've lost as well, which I hate that, that we look at, oh man, we only lost by 3, we only lost by 2, we only lost by, 4 here. But it does play a key when people are looking in some of these rankings. And that's why we haven't dropped out of the top 30 of a lot of these rankings, which is crazy because we have an 18-9 record and a 8-6 conference record, but yet we're still in the top 30 in a lot of these metrics. That's because we're in these games, we're not getting blown out. We're playing close. We're not losing terribly big. And that plays a key when it comes to March. And, we just got to hold on. If we can get 2 or 4 here, if we get 3 or 4, then I like our chances moving forward somehow.
Yeah, and if we get 2 of 4, or even if we only get 1 of 4, but we can pick up a couple of wins in the SEC tournament, I think we got a pretty good shot, and anything can happen in March. And if you've been a listener to this podcast, and let's face it, if you're listening this long into this podcast, you probably joined us last year. You listened for some good analysis on what was one of the great Auburn teams. Think back at how many games that team could have lost, particularly late in games. But they had some fantastic heroics. They had a group that really believed and had a ton of talent. And they were on the other side of the coin for a lot of those close games. And now you're getting to look at an Auburn basketball team that may not be as talented, definitely doesn't have as many NBA ready guys. And they're on the tail side of a lot of these close games where we just can't seem to get over the hump yet. So if there's anything to hang your hat on, it's that can be where this team improves. In a close game, somebody's going to step up, somebody's going to make a shot, somebody's going to make a stop, and that's going to just give us so much momentum going forward. Maybe they're going to figure out before the end of the year, or you know what, Ryan? Maybe we'll have a really great run in the NIT.
Ooh, don't say those words.
You're
Look,
right.
it's
I'm officially banished from the podcast. This will be my last host, everyone.
those are some tough words, man. But honestly, if you think about it, if like a North Carolina can't win, or I mean, honestly, if Kentucky would have lost the past two games, they probably would have been in that bubble too. But look, it's tough because if you look at, I thought tonight we're gonna exercise some demons and pull out a close win. Uh, we have not done that all year, and I think that's what's frustrating for a lot of
Well,
us that
hang
are
on.
about.
We've done that once at home against Florida. It was a
Yeah,
close game. It came down to one play.
well,
That's the one win that we've got. Now, Florida's not a great basketball team,
but we
but
were winning.
we were winning. We were winning. What
We have
we
not.
didn't need a shot. We needed a defensive stop.
Yeah, but it's these games that we needed a basket and then a stop, or it's tough, man. It's just it's killer because you feel like we're going to get over that hump. We're going to get over that hump, and then we do maybe one game like Missouri, and then we're back down to where we are. And that's what's so frustrating about this team is that we I do you think that Missouri is that game, our offensive play and defensive play, that's our ceiling?
It's tough to say because one of the amazing things about this coaching staff is how well they understand their matchups. And we matched up really well against Missouri. And we all said it, and the media said it too. Everybody knew coming into this game because Vanderbilt had a 7-footer inside that was talented and can make some shots. I mean, hats off to a center that can make 17 out of 20 free throws. You find me a lot of all-star NBA centers that can hit free throws at that clip, and they're going to be in the Hall of Fame. That's not an ordinary thing to have somebody inside that can do that well. And the tricky part for other teams that have beaten Vanderbilt and run them out of the stadium is that they can hit from outside and they neutralize him as a defensive factor. We relied so heavily on our inside game, and our outside game was just so non-existent that we played right into their style of ball. So the tricky part is always going to be for the rest of this team going forward. It's about matchups. If we draw a team in the SEC tournament that we match up well against, we got a shot. We draw a team in March that we match up well against, we got a shot. We got a couple of teams that we're going to match up pretty well against. I think we're going to match up well against Ole Miss. We found out earlier in the year we matched up pretty well against Tennessee. We should have Dylan Cardwell back. That's going to make a big difference. If Janai's healthy down the stretch, that's going to either save or hurt us. And then, yeah, in the tournaments, it's going to come down to what do the matchups look like, because we've seen the ceiling of this team's talent. And it's about if we can match up our front court with their front court and beat them inside. Because, I love Wendell. I love KD. I love that he can, once in a blue moon, hit a big shot. But matchup for matchup, there's not a lot of teams in the SEC I'm going to take them against.
Trivia time. What was our record around this time when we went to the Final Four?
If I remember correctly, at the end of the season, our record might have been identical, right? Because we finished with 23 wins that year, right?
Currently, right now, our record is 18-9. We are 8-6 in the SEC. February 20th of 2019, we were 18-8 and 7-6 in the SEC.
Wow.
So, look, that team had some special players. I think it's hard for an Auburn fan to think like that team. That team was struggling around that time of the year. I think people forgot, like, we just lost to Ole Miss at home. It was
We'd
really
gotten
bad.
blown out. We'd gotten blown out by Kentucky. We lost that game by what? What
Yes,
was it? Nearly 20 points?
80 to 53.
Yeah, it was
Um,
brutal.
yeah, and that team was basically on the bubble at that point. So look, like that team had some players, that team had some shooters. I'm not going to compare the two, but if Auburn fans who were so visual and comparing of especially football fans, right, that like to compare teams, when you look at where this team is currently now compared to that team that year, they're basically identical. Like that team did not have any good wins to that point. That team had not been playing its best basketball. I think at that point their best win was against Murray State that had John Morant. Um, that was it. So look, they're very similar, and I think you could still hold on to a little bit of hope that this team, we know what this team is capable of against like a Missouri and those type of teams that we can come out and play good offensively. We just have to tie it all together, and tonight we didn't. It kills us, it hurts, but there is some hope that
And
we can
let's
try to hold
remember,
on to.
Matt always talks about how basketball is a game of runs, right? You go on a 12-0 run, the team you're against goes on an 8-0 run, and it's, do your runs add up to more than their runs in the end? Well, in a similar fashion, college basketball is a game about when do you get hot? We watched a Texas A&M team last year get hot at the very end of the season. They beat Auburn in the SEC tournament. They almost won the SEC tournament, and they still wound up in the NIT because they hadn't built themselves enough of a cushion to lose. If there's one good thing that you can appreciate about this Auburn team, particularly when you look at the metrics, when you look at the strength of schedule, we've given ourselves enough of a cushion to have a night like this where we underperform a little bit, we lose a close game on the road. It's a challenging environment, but we still got a shot. And the same could be said for any of the Auburn teams that we've seen under Bruce Pearl, that it's not so much about can you put together a fantastic run like that team up the road has where you finish the end of the year on a great streak. It's, when are you hot? When do you figure it out? When do you put it all together? And when do you finally string some wins together? We were a little bit spoiled last year, middle of the season. We strung together 8 or 9 really close, fantastic wins. We were the number one ranked team in the country. And the last banner that we hung was that SEC regular season championship. So just remember that this team and this coaching staff, they can figure it out. They can get hot. And who knows what's in the future? Only way to find out is to watch.
Yep, and just keep supporting these guys because these next four are very important. So look, as hard as that one was tonight, I think next Saturday, especially, I mean Wednesday, it's a must win, and I think we got to have it, and we're gonna pull it out. But Saturday and next Wednesday are massive, and unfortunately, like I think I texted you earlier, like Alabama at home is like Thanos, like they're unreal. I mean, if we were to go in there and steal that, amazing, but they don't miss a shot at home. So
here's what I'm
we
going to
got to
say.
have.
If we somehow go into Coleman and pull that off, we're in the dance. That is a season defining win. So put that
Yeah,
in perspective when you think about like what that game is going to be like trying to win that.
yeah, it's look, like, this team needs us. If we can pull it out somehow, like that team did back in 2018, 2019, you never know. You just never know when March comes around. A guy gets hot. Like Jared Harper got hot in that SEC tournament. Wendell can get hot. You never know. So
We've seen some guys
let's
surprise us this year.
yeah,
So,
let's let us one sting tonight. We'll get back at it Wednesday, and then you never know.
yeah.
But it was tough tonight. I know a bunch of our friends and co-hosts went to that game, and man, Memorial Magic. I hate that place. I hate it.
There's going to come a time where our blue blood status is going to finally afford us that year over year success. But there are a couple of places. Nashville is one, Gainesville is another. And next Saturday, we got another big one coming up going into Lexington, where we historically as a program just do not win. And we have a chance still for some season defining wins. And it was amazing to hear, even on the TV broadcast, just how many Auburn people were there to support our guys. They were in there. They were loud. You could see the orange on TV. Even the commentators were talking about how loud the Auburn fans were in that game. It makes a difference. If you want to talk about a mediocre offensive night, what kept us in this game? It was the fact that when we made big plays, we had big cheers. So stick with this team. Season's not over yet.
Yeah, let's keep grinding. It's this team needs us. This coaching staff needs us. Uh, it's that time of the year. I just want to see us in that bracket. I cannot fill up my bracket for the first time in a long time and not see us on there. I gotta have us on there.
Gotta have it. War Eagle, Ryan.
Where you go, Ben? We'll see you guys later.